Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a brand new explainer, and we are going to practice a seriously fascinating skill. It's called visual forensics. We're going to take just one single photograph and completely deconstruct it, uncovering all those amazing hidden details tucked away inside just one frame. You know, it's crazy how much of the world we just totally miss when we're constantly glancing and scrolling past everything. But today, we aren't glancing, we are investigating.
So, what actually happens when you look closely at a single moment frozen in time? We live in this incredibly fast-paced world, right? We're constantly bombarded with imagery. But I want to invite you to join me in the practice of slow looking. Because when we actually slow down, a static image stops being just a picture, and suddenly it transforms into this beautifully complex story about architecture, atmosphere, and even human quirks.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll start way up at the macro scale with the giant architecture, then we'll move to the midground to see the environmental interactions, and finally, we'll zoom right into the micro details in the foreground. Right, moving into part 1, the gravity-defying silhouette.
Seriously, just look at this skyline. We are immediately greeted by these three colossal monolithic glass towers. But the absolute most striking element here, it's got to be that gravity-defying roof cap connecting them all. It literally looks like a massive futuristic ship just resting across the tops of the skyscrapers. It totally commands your attention and just dominates that dreary gray skyline behind it.
Now, to truly appreciate the magic of what's happening at the top of this structure, we absolutely have to talk about the cantilever. If you look at the left side of that upper deck, you'll see it extends way out past the leftmost tower, basically projecting into empty space. You can even spot these tiny trees sprinkled along that floating edge. It's an absolute marvel of engineering. It creates this incredible feeling of lightness, despite being made of literally thousands of tons of steel and concrete. Breaking down this macro view a bit further, there are a few key features that really anchor everything. We've got those three uniform glass facades, giving us this very rhythmic, repeating pattern. Then, capping the whole thing off is that sweeping, unbroken upper deck. At this massive scale, these elements create a beautiful visual weight against the lightness of the sky. It feels incredibly grounded and permanent.
But you know, the architects clearly didn't just want to build a giant heavy box. Notice the stark contrast down here at the base. Beneath those rigid vertical lines of the main tower shooting up into the clouds, we've got these sweeping, tent-like white pavilions with these gorgeous organic curves. This contrast, totally intentional. It breaks up that massive wall of glass and adds this really dynamic energy right at the base of the structure. Okay, shifting gears to part 2, glass, steel, and storm.
Because this architecture doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It exists in a dynamic climate. Notice the dreary, overcast sky and the choppy, turbulent water framing these buildings. If you look over on the right, you can even spot this neat little glass dome sitting right on the water's edge, completely exposed to the elements. The environment is actively wrapping itself around the architecture here.
When we really lean into this practice of slow looking, we start activating all our senses. Looking at this, you can almost feel the chilling, melancholic atmosphere of that gray storm. You can practically imagine the heavy air, hear the splash of rain hitting that rippling water, and picture the cold droplets running down the thousands of heavy glass panes on those giant monoliths. It's like the static image completely comes alive with movement and temperature. And the weather is actually acting as a massive filter for this entire scene. That flat, overcast gray light completely transforms the buildings. Instead of reflecting bright, blinding sunlight, they turn into these cool, muted blue monoliths. The rain is visibly texturing the water's surface, turning it from what could be a flat mirror into this rough, dynamic foreground element. Overall, the storm mutes all the background colors, giving the whole thing a very cohesive, almost cinematic, and slightly moody palette. Let's pull it back down to earth for part 3, foregrounding the human scale. We get so used to staring up at the grand architecture, but let's ignore the massive towers for just a second. Look right down at the bottom right corner of the foreground. What do we have? A wet metal railing and some everyday foliage. It's a completely different world down here, isn't it?
These little foreground details completely ground this megastructure in reality. They bring the scale right back down to a relatable, human level. We see these mundane, deeply familiar details. The slick, rain-swept ground, a sturdy metal barrier, and these sweet little bushes with tiny pink flowers. Even pitched against towering steel in a looming gray storm, these resilient little bursts of life remain.
But here's the absolute best part. The crucial point here is the fantastic sense of irony in this composition. On one hand, you have a multi-billion-dollar architectural marvel looming in the background, representing the absolute pinnacle of human engineering. And on the other hand, right in front of your face, tucked onto the railing, is a strict, deeply mundane little sign that simply says, "No fishing." I mean, no matter how grand our monuments get, we still have to put up signs telling people not to cast a line in the bay.
And that brings us to the end of our visual forensics journey for today. So, what everyday details are you missing in your own environment? We just found structural marvels, atmospheric drama, and a hilarious little no fishing sign all packed inside one single frame, just by taking the time to truly look. I challenge you, look closely at your commute or your neighborhood today. There are hidden stories everywhere, just waiting for you to notice them. Keep your eyes open, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.